This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Friday, December 27th, 2024. And I've got the excellent Rich Woods here of XDA. Hi, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. And you know what's really great is that last week, Nick Gray and I went over the 5 phones of the year. And I wanted to have you on because I want to go over the 5 computers, basically, you know, laptops, tablet 2-in-1s, whatever that you think are maybe the 5. Maybe, you know, you can throw an extra one in there, like a honorable mention. I have some ideas, but you're kind of the guru. And I thought you might throw us some curveballs with some like gaming laptops or something that I don't normally cover. So yeah, thanks for coming.
Okay.
Here. Do you want to start? Like, do you have one that's like the one? What is the one?
You want to start with the
Maybe
products
not.
themselves?
Maybe you want to start with not the one.
I mean, it's just like, got to mention that it's been a really big year for laptops, right? It started out with, do you realize that Intel Meteor Lake was announced a year and 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And it's already been replaced by Lunar Lake, you know, and then we got Snapdragon X Elite, obviously.
I mean, I'd like to think that Meteor Lake was kind of not the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? Like,
it wasn't too great, but the fact that the life cycle turned over so quickly, I mean, that we're already in a totally different place, you know. So for products, I think I got to go with the Surface Laptop 7. I think that was my favorite laptop of the year.
That is right. Like you're using it. Is this your go-to right now for laptops?
It is. A lot of people are asking me about Lunar Lake versus Snapdragon X Elite, and I don't have a really clear answer. I just really like some of the products.
I feel like it's a tough one to answer, to be honest with you. I feel like you could easily just be like, depends on what you're doing, right? And also depends on what kind of compatibility you need for your apps, right?
Yeah, totally. And there's still some app compat issues, to be honest. And also, Intel's doing a lot better with graphics right now.
Okay.
And it's really, I'll get to that in a second because it's a Snapdragon product. But I mean, like the battery life is fantastic. The keyboard's fantastic. The screen is fantastic. They finally redesigned the chassis properly. It's got smaller bezels and
is it thinner? Because I liked the overall wedged like Cybertruck type design. You know, I hate to kind of retroactively give them a really kind of douchey product as a reference, but it's funny because you look back and you're like, oh yeah, look at that. But the thing is, I feel like it was a little thick because it hit it well. But has that been resolved? I don't think it bothers me personally, but.
Yeah, you know? I believe so. I mean, that design, they used that design for like 5 years, and it had these thick bezels for the longest. It had a 720p camera for the longest time.
Yeah.
So they're finally putting some proper, and it's all Snapdragon too, which is cool.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
How do you feel like what's going on with Microsoft there? Because I really feel like they'd want to have some Intel.
Well, first of all, I think they're going to have an Intel product coming up at some point. I totally expect it. They've always had a tight Intel partnership, but they had that Copilot Plus launch in May, and it was all about Snapdragon PCs at the time. And a lot of times when they're referring to Windows on ARM, they call it Copilot Plus, and even though they're not the same thing, they use the terms interchangeably. So like it's a big Snapdragon, and it's also Apple envy. Right. It's total Apple envy.
I think we can also talk about that a little bit. But what I think is really interesting here, let's talk about the differences of X Plus and X Elite. And on Snapdragon side, let's talk about Lunar Lake. I think the other Intels I'm not so interested in talking about because I really feel like to get the parity of battery life and efficiency and performance, we need to, kind of equate somewhat or put on the same playing field Snapdragon versus M series Apple, right, versus Lunar Lake, which I think are very competitive. But I was surprised with Surface that, like, of course, the 2-in-1 should be a Snapdragon. That makes perfect sense. But I felt like maybe the 15-inch laptop, should be like an Intel for just a bit of variety. You know, some corporate customers might want that because they're kind of invested in old apps that run obviously way better, not emulated, etc.
Well,
right?
remember, they released a Surface Laptop 6 and a Surface Pro 10. It was just like a couple months before they announced these, and they were specifically business products, and they had Intel chips, and then they used the old designs, and
Right.
so like they had something for business customers.
Okay, so they already
still.
had that kind of quartered, right? Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, because there was an announcement not too long before that, right? You said 6
Right.
months. I remember that now. Now, see, this is
I
why
don't
we
even
need
think
you
it
on
was
the
6.
show.
I think it was literally like 2 or 3 months.
This is why we need you on the show, Rich, because I
Yeah.
forget these things. Yeah, so I think to me what stands out is we've had an incredible year with these new chips, and I think Intel has really stepped up. And I was honestly always making fun of them for like kind of being lost, but I think they found themselves, and I'm excited about it because I have a, you know, maybe I'll take, I don't know if it's my favorite, it's one of my favorites since you named one. I am really, really keen and excited and happy right now with the Asus ZenBook S14, which is a Lunar Lake ultra thin, ultra light. In fact, in terms of hardware, it's probably my favorite that I have. But in terms of experience, it's, you know, I've got another one, camera aside, in terms of experience, that is a Snapdragon one that I'll talk about in a minute. But I think that you're right. Like Intel, you know, let's talk about the Intel story, because I feel like Intel, that Apple fire that was lit under their butt 4 years ago is finally paying off. I'm surprised it took 4 years.
It's not just an Apple fire; it's also a Qualcomm fire
Is it?
that
Do you
started
think Qualcomm
in like
really did that? Because I felt like
yeah.
Qualcomm it didn't really have much leverage here, really, right?
No, they didn't. But think of Intel introduced a hybrid architecture with 12th gen.
Right.
I don't have the year off the top of my head, but this was probably 2020 ish.
Right.
So they were working on, and that was from the threat of Windows on ARM, right? Even though Qualcomm never had a good product,
No.
it definitely influenced Intel's products.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's interesting because, like, I feel like they're finally getting there. Like, I think if you're pushing this is, I think, what's happening in general, and this is on the phone world as well. If you're pushing the chips really hard, your battery life is going down the hill so quickly, it's unbelievable. Like, you're playing games on a phone. You obviously probably don't play games on a Lunar Lake laptop, but my point is, you tax the system and you will see your battery life going down. But if you're just kind of cruising along, doing Netflix, YouTube, browsing the web, doing work, right, that is not like hardcore 8K video editing in DaVinci Resolve, you're probably, even then, I think, unless you're exporting, you'll be fine. And this is kind of where Apple was so strong with the M chips. And I think where Qualcomm came in and was like, look, we are finally doing this too. And then, surprise, Intel did it too, which is like, wow. And I think if you look at the chip architecture, and you can correct me because I'm not quite as versed as you are, but it looks like we're having chiplets, right? Multiple nanometer sizes of different components on the same chip, not the same die, but the same actual physical package. And I think that's kind of like a stepping stone towards what, you know, Qualcomm and Apple are doing, which is a single die with all the same nanometer components. But it just shows how you can turn stuff off and it pays off, because like you now are no longer wasting power on a like 5 nanometer or 7 nanometer part, right? Like if you don't need the GPU to fire up strongly, like just you're just rendering the UI, you know, fine, turn it off. If you don't need the MPEG-4 encoder, just turn that off, you know? Like I think that's kind of where in the past, Intel wasn't really quite as strong, and I think them looking at that is exciting. And I think, honestly, I really don't care if 10 years from now, 5 years from now, our laptops have a single core that's x86 for actual backwards compatibility, like hardware compatibility for the business people.
That'll be interesting.
But honestly, I hope that Intel, you know, I want them to kind of like get more transgressive with their chip design. I want them to go crazy and do some really interesting things. Well,
they're gonna, right? Because the competition now is intense.
That's what
I'm saying. So things are gonna get really interesting.
And I want them to.
So first of all, with Lunar Lake, I'll tell you my second product on my list is the HP OmniBook Ultra Flip,
Ooh.
which is a Spectre X360 successor.
And what's that?
And that one's
on?
Intel.
Intel,
That's Lunar Lake. So first of all, with any Lunar Lake laptop, what everybody needs to know is that when you unplug it, when you're using it not connected to any power, you need to change the power setting from balanced to best performance. When I first got a Lunar Lake laptop, Zhao got one too. He's the lead Windows editor on XDA, and we were both really disappointed at first because the performance drops when you unplug it. That's true of any x86 laptop, but when you set it to best performance, it's actually really good, and it still gets wonderful battery life.
Oh, cool!
But that's when we were really impressed. So the graphics performance with Lunar Lake is way better than anything else on the Windows market right now. And I've been saying this for years, which is no one's asking for dedicated graphics on a Mac, right? No, right. So when you talk to Qualcomm about Snapdragon X Elite and stuff like that, and I say, well, what about doing this thing? And they go, oh, well, it's not really for those people. Right? It's for people doing office work. And it's like, people don't use their computers that way. You buy a computer, you spend $1,000 or $1,500 on it. It's got to do. Yeah. Everybody plays some level of games.
I mean, they do it on their phones. Qualcomm, hello. I have a Red Magic 10 Pro in a box on that shelf right there that I need to unbox before CS. And I'm telling you, that thing screams at playing games, and it's a Qualcomm chip. So hello.
Yeah. So Intel's finally taking integrated graphics properly seriously, and it's really good.
Cool.
So
it's the first
really
time,
nice
right, that it's really performing at the level where you'd expect it to, right? Yeah.
It's almost like a secret weapon of Lunar Lake that kind of really makes it shine.
I did not know that. Curious about one thing though. Like, okay, you're saying, the M chips, the Apple chips are not, but you look at the architecture, like, what there's like some of the M Pros have 48 cores of GPU or whatever. Like the point is, I think the problem is not so much the performance of the GPU. It's I
didn't say that. I know.
I'm just saying, I think to clarify for the audience, I think the problem is that nobody's writing games coding for that architecture properly. And I think that's the same with Snapdragon, right? Like the Snapdragon GPU is, its X Elite is based very similar to 8 Elite. Like 8 Elite is Gen 2 of X Elite essentially, but for mobile. And we're going to see Gen 2 at some point this year of the X chips, right? So
but it's going to have newer cores than the 8 Elite does.
Exactly.
It's going to have Gen 3
GPU
Orion cores.
The issue is the GPU is the game developers are not having to recreate, and that's really hard. Having worked in video games for 20 years, it's a big, you're going to say, well, they already have Call of Duty on mobile, so what's the big deal? Well, I'm not talking about those games. I'm talking about the games that people will build a PC for and buy on RTX, whatever, 3090, whatever, 4090, whatever the latest is, and go nuts, right? And those things are not optimized right now for M. They're not optimized for Snapdragon. They're not even running that great on Lunar Lake, probably comparatively to like an RTX, right? But they're running better on Lunar Lake, which is the point you're making. So I think that's going to change as we're seeing more, everyday friendly laptops in the PC world get in the hands of consumers, and they're going to demand it. And I think the game developers are going to have to deliver. And also, once the game developers try it out and go like, holy crap, 48 cores on that MacBook Pro, and I can actually do some like crazy rendering. I want to do that, right? So once that happens, I actually think the Snapdragon stuff is going to get better love than Apple stuff. There's no doubt. Like, I think Apple has somehow, and the somehow could be an entire podcast, has somehow kind of gotten the stigma of not being game savvy, game capable hardware for years now, and I think that's not going to go away, because even though that's not true, I think it's just almost part of the cult and the religion or whatever, the zeitgeist of Apple, because they never focused on that for many, many years. And I don't think they're really that focused, even though on their keynotes they're kind of showing off stuff. It's kind of right now, it's lip service, right? You see the keynotes from Qualcomm and you're like, yeah, you've got some games, but let's get real. The developers are not really on board. So I'm hoping that a year or two from now, you and I having another podcast about the 5 best laptops of 2027, we're going to be like, hey, look at that. There's some games now for Snapdragon that optimize and are kicking butt on these super thin, super light, like 4 millimeter thick laptops. Well, actually, that's not going to work because we need a keyboard.
Right.
But like, okay, maybe a centimeter. I think we can make a laptop that's a centimeter thick and that has still like 2 or 3 millimeters of key travel.
Yeah.
I'm excited. You know what I'm excited about, Rich? I've always been a big fan of laptops. And for a long time, or especially around 2010 when the iPad came out, I was like, oh no, the laptops are going to go away. I do not want the laptops to go away. And not only are we having a renaissance this year, but like, look at the form factors.
Yeah.
Every laptop is hyper sexy. And I know that I know that we have the Air to thank for that in many, many ways. And Asus for following suit immediately with the ZenBook line. Mm-hmm. I think they set the standard for the PC world. And I think Lenovo jumped in pretty quickly, and then Dell and HP and everyone else.
Well, I mean, as far as design, I think that HP has been leading that for that. I'd say from like 2017 through
the
2022.
Folio, right? The leather one. Remember that?
No, like just as far as pure sexiness in a laptop, the Spectre X360 from like 2022 was just the most beautiful.
The one with
ever.
They all have the cut corners of USB-C port.
They had the cut
side.
edges. Yeah. They had the two-tone design was like black with copper accents, and just
they're doing a good
beautiful.
job. And as I said, like they did some cool stuff even 5-10 years ago, like that Folio leather one, like the hardware wasn't there. Like the chips just couldn't support the form factor, you know,
Right.
and that's how I felt about Surface for years. Honestly, when, you know, I love Surface. I've always had to be a big fan, even though Microsoft
I've not.
Well, Microsoft doesn't give me the time of day, but I feel for me, what really nailed it is when they came out with a laptop. Like that's when I was like, oh, this is good. And then, you know,
they made a laptop, but and assume you're not talking about Surface Book, which was the
No.
original
I'm talking
laptop,
about the original laptop,
the Surface laptop,
like the one that was not 2-in-1, right?
But how long did it take them to put USB-C in there?
Well, I know, but my point is, I felt like they were they've been on the right path. And finally now I don't feel as upset about the Surface products. But here's the thing. When they came out with that Snapdragon one, the, 10 Pro or 10X or whatever, remember? It was not an Elite, not a Plus. Like, it was a long time ago, like 2 or 3 years ago.
For Surface?
2-in-1.
Oh, the Surface Pro X.
That's
Surface Pro 9 5G.
Yeah, Surface Pro X is the one I'm thinking about. That one, I was like, okay, I can see it now. Like the performance wasn't there, but I believe in Qualcomm enough that I was like, okay, I know where we're going.
And I'm really sad that they discontinued that design. When they did Surface Pro 9, it was Intel, and then they had a 5G model with a Snapdragon 8CX Gen 3 that they called it an SQ3, I guess. But they used the same chassis because they called them all Surface Pro 9.
Right.
And it was so disappointing. It was thicker. It had a fake gap for a fan. Like you look in the gap and it's actually sealed.
Oh my God, it's amazing. I have the original SQ1 model, and it's one of the few review units I never sent back. First, they didn't ask for it. But secondly, I was like, I want a Windows on ARM machine around. Of course, now I've got a whole bunch. But back then, it was like the only thing, and I wanted to see how it evolved. And so every time, you know, somebody would chime in on, like either the PR people email me or somebody from Qualcomm would post on the social about, hey, Chromium has been optimized for, I'd update I'd go in, I'd fire it up, run the Windows update Chrome, and try it out and be like, is that it? And of course it never was, but it was good enough for what coming from, you know this, You've laughed at me about this before. Coming from a 12-inch MacBook, the Retina ultra thin, ultra light, I was okay with running 10 tabs in Chrome on a Microsoft Surface Pro X. So, you know, it depends on, you know, your perspective. I'm still not a big fan of 2-in-1s. I get it. I think if you're using a pencil or pen all the time, it makes sense. I feel that for me, the part of laptop is critical, and you cannot, most of the tablet 2-in-1s are not lap compatible, you know, like they fall over. And that's my, like I have a Pro Art right now, the Snapdragon X Plus version, and I love it, but I cannot, I've wanted to, every time I want to take it on an airplane or on trip with me, I'm like, nope, Can't use that on my lap, which is, as a larger person that sometimes has to fly economy, I'm like, sometimes I need something that I can put on my lap because it doesn't fit. Even my MacBook Air does not fit on the tray table properly, because I've got a big belly sticking out. So it's like, how do I do that? Well, I can't do it with a tablet.
But what if you had a tablet with a kickstand, but the attachable keyboard also used Bluetooth, so you could just disconnect it and put it on your lap?
That is what I've been doing with so this is not related to laptops directly, but I have the OnePlus Pad 2, which is the tablet Android. And that one has a detachable Bluetooth. It's wired attached. It's got the pogo pin, so it charges that way and also gives you less latency. And then you can hang it on that, if it's possible to hang it on the seat in front of you, you can do that and have the keyboard on it. Nice. And it has a nice trackpad too, so it's actually like reusable.
Yeah.
That is a good form factor, but it's rare. It seems that not many have that.
Now, what I was getting at is the Surface Pro 11.
Well, okay, before you name your third, because I haven't named a second, let me name a second. Well, maybe I'll say, since we're talking about these 2-in-1s, let's give an honorable mention to the Asus, the tablet, whatever it is, ProArt AZs, I don't know what the number is, the one. It's the Snapdragon X Plus version. And I have a whole segue that I want to discuss with you before you continue with your Surface, but fans on Snapdragon chips. Can we talk about that a little bit? Anyway, you were saying Surface.
Yeah, the Pro 11. I mean, it's great, right? But to me, the really great thing about the product was the new keyboard. I like I said earlier, I've not historically been a big Surface fan.
But now you're converted.
I am converted because they finally made good products. Surface Pro, like everything that you're saying about Surface Pro, like this is not a practical product for most people to buy, or historically hasn't been. Yeah. Surface laptop has always been a solid product, but also behind all of its competitors. They'd always be using old chips, old ports, big bezels, whatever. Surface Book was always bad.
Oh, always. I had one for a while, the first gen, and I was like, Yeah.
People treat them like they're mainstream products when they're clearly designed for a niche. So I mean, the keyboard though is one of the things that really makes the Surface Pro 11 awesome. And they finally put an OLED display on it, which is huge difference. Snapdragon X Elite, it's really good.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because OLEDs for me on laptops are still not I'm 100% on board simply because of the calibration. Like Asus, awesome. I love the OLEDs on the Asus. The calibration is perfect. I can edit photos. I don't feel like, because you remember, I'm coming from Macs. So the calibration, it doesn't matter which Mac you buy. You can buy the cheapest M1 on sale at Walmart for $599 right now. And even that display has low res, compared to like nowadays, big bezels. It's calibrated. And so I'm used to that. And so I go to like the Lenovo, for example, that is my next one I want to mention. Like it's not good. Like I cannot find a calibration that lets me edit photos because I'm doing it. I'm going to get with the wrong results, right? And that's not good. By the way, I looked it up because I'm stupid and I don't remember things. ProArt PZ13 is the 2-in-1 from Asus. So I like that one. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't give it I would give it like a 3 out of 5 because it's thicker than it's more like an Intel 2-in-1 creator product than a Snapdragon because of the fan, which I think we're going to talk about in a minute, but because of also, I don't know, choices they've made. It's beautifully made. It feels nice. The keyboard's decent. Everything's okay about it. It's got a very nice OLED, by the way. But So you had 3. I have a third one for you, and that's probably my favorite overall, except for 2 things: camera and display calibration. Display calibration on that OLED. The Lenovo Yoga Book 7X, I believe it's called. It's the Snapdragon X Elite, the first one I got my hands on.
Slim.
Yeah, it's probably also because it was my first. It was my first Snapdragon Elite. or X product. And I fell in love because like the first time I've used a laptop with Windows where the battery life just never ended. And coming from a MacBook Air, I'm used to that. And so I'm like, oh, this is great. I love the design. I love the keyboard. Oh my God, the keyboard, Lenovo keyboards.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So good. But why is the camera like, it feels like it's a 240p potato camera with no dynamic range whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very washed out. And I've noticed that with several Lenovo laptops this year, which has been
And you can't fix that. Tried all the, I mean, Snapdragon has all those HDR settings. Like, you know, the ISP is heavy lifting and even the ISP is like, see ya, I'm out of here. It's not happening.
Nothing.
And also the calibration, if you're listening, Jeff, please get your engineers to fix the calibration. Give us a calibration that matches what the rest of the competition is doing. I don't understand why everything feels like a Samsung Note 1 from 2010 that has like ultra saturated everything and you can't edit photos. Like I tried the different modes, vivid, non-vivid. It's all crap.
Yep.
Do not use that laptop for editing photos, please. You're going to hurt yourself. But other than that,
one thing about that laptop is that it uses a certain SKU of the X Elite. It's the 78 SKU. The product names are X1E 78-100.
Okay.
Which is not my favorite. My favorite is the 80.
It's a slower one. Okay.
Yeah, there's a decent enough difference in performance between the two chips that I was disappointed at any product that used that kind of entry level X Elite.
Is that also used in that 15-inch Asus laptop that has the numpad? No. That's the 80, right?
That is the 80. Wait, actually, I'm not sure. One thing I know about that is that they said they would have the best performance because they're pumping 45 watts into it.
Oh, okay. Because I have that one too, but it's a 15 inches, way too big for me. Also, this is weird. This is going to be weird. You're going to laugh at this, Rich, because you're using all these different laptops from Windows manufacturers all the time. But I am not used to having a numpad. And like I'm used to having a separate numpad, like on, you know, like a 101 IBM keyboard, right, from back in the day, you know, the clickety, like super like spring mechanism. Like I'm used to that, but like I want a space between my delete key and whatever's coming next. And having not that space means I hit the wrong buttons all the time. You know what I've done? I've removed all the keycaps on the entire numpad on that temporarily. I'll put them back because I can't use it. Like it's like, and also now everything's off center, right? Like every time I'm sitting in front of that laptop and I want to use it, I love the screen, 15 inches, nice real estate, great. But I'm like, why am I? Everything's off kilter. It feels so. Yeah. Question for these manufacturers. Maybe question for you. Maybe you have a better insight. And I think you and I have talked about the fan thing, and you're going to give us the insight for my listeners in a second as to why they're doing what they're doing. But why is it that we cannot get 15, 16-inch laptops, 17-inch laptops from PC manufacturers without a numpad like Apple does? Why can't we just get a normal keyboard there, centered with a massive trackpad? Why?
It just depends on the
like if
the
it's
manufacturer of the product who is targeted at.
If it's it's a business product, I don't care. It's fine. But if it's
what they don't want to do is like what they can't do is offer options, right? It would be great if you could just say like, I want this product and without the number pad.
It could. It seems like it could be done.
The 15-inch Surface laptop does not have one, right?
Nice.
You know, like a Dell XPS 16 does not have one.
Good.
So I mean, it's not that
uncommon. Okay, because I always feel like every time I see a 15 or 16-inch PC, I'm like, why does it have a numpad? And I'm like, no numpad.
I agree. Yeah.
Accountants want numpads. I get it. That's why they don't buy a what is the Asus business brand?
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about. They have a business brand, but
now it's going to kill me until I think
Dell has Inspiron, right? And
Latitude for business.
Latitude, thank you. Yeah. Inspiron's is a consumer brand. XPS is the high end, like super slim, light, and powerful thing.
I do have the XPS 13 as the next product on my
list. Can they please go back to having a real trackpad, and can they please go back to having function keys? That's all I'm asking from Dell. Like
I don't want the function keys. I don't want them.
Really?
I like the keys as they are.
Wait, are they not like they're touch sensitive? Where they're like capacitive, right? Why do that? Why?
Man, I think it's fine. I think that if you use those keys frequently you should buy a different laptop.
For sure, but
But if
why
you
did
don't,
they do,
I think it's great.
why did they do that in the first place? There's no need. It seems overly complex, overly Apple-y, which we already know Apple decided themselves they made a mistake. I mean, like,
I think that they wanted to do something different.
yeah, fair.
They wanted to make a product that looks futuristic. I'm surprised that they adopted it across the XPS lineup, right? When they did XPS 14 and 16, now all of them have that. That surprised me a little bit, because if you want to make something cool and futuristic, you should, because it puts you out there and shows that you're innovating and doing things that your competitors aren't doing, which is neat. But to make it mainstream across the whole premium lineup it's a big bet.
Yeah. Anyway, I just want Dell to change that on the XPS if the XPS remains XPS.
The touchpad is a weird choice. The
yeah,
borderless
that
touchpad
too. It's like I need to find out where the edge of my, even if it's, I don't mind if it was just like a line that you could feel by touch. Like then I'd be like, okay, I'm off the trackpad now. That's cool.
I will tell you that I reviewed many XPS units this year, and I did that on purpose because I don't get to review as many products as I used to. But when they had the XPS 13 and the 14 and the 16 and then the 13 again and then the 13 again, I think I did.
Very Dell.
well, it's because, remember that the original launch earlier this year, we talked about Meteor Lake is still new. So like that was 13, 14, and 16 were Meteor Lake products, and then they did a Snapdragon XPS 13, and then they did a Lunar Lake.
Oh, right, okay.
I did all except the Snapdragon XPS 13. I did it on purpose because I wanted to spend as much time on this design as possible to see how well I would get used to it. And like, because like if you're telling someone whether you should buy this thing and you're like, yeah, well, I used it for a week and a half before I wrote a review.
Yeah,
and
well,
like,
that's the problem.
That's not
right?
real.
No, it's not real. That's the problem with everything we do.
Well, especially for a product like that, because you have to tell someone, can you get used to a borderless touchpad, which is not like, it's a responsibility, right?
100%.
So,
yeah. I think the only Meteor Lake I have is the Acer, some kind of Acer generic, like I want to say 14-inch laptop of some kind. No numpad. It's perfectly acceptable, but it's not a Copilot PC because of it.
Right.
I mean,
it's
not
fine.
plus.
Meteor Lake's fine.
Right. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Battery life is, but it's okay.
Of course, I did spend the first half of this year writing that no one should buy it because Lunar Lake was coming.
Well,
like as soon as Meteor Lake was out, it was like, okay, Lunar Lake's coming.
That's why I asked for a review unit, because I was like, okay, I want to get a baseline, having not used any Intel laptops in a while. Like I want to get a baseline, and then I used the Acer for a while, and then I switched to the Lenovo with X Elite, and I was like, oh yeah, and then I switched to the Pro Art, and then finally on the Zen. Well, I think I got the Asus with the X Elite in there, like the 15-inch with the numpad. And then I switched. So the last one I've had is the Lunar Lake, the ZenBook S14, which is, I think, design-wise my favorite. Also calibration on the OLED camera. But I kind of wish it was an X Elite. And so I'm really excited about some of the upcoming stuff from Asus that I can't talk about because, very good, very cool. But here's the thing. You've named 3. I've named 3. I think maybe
I actually just named a 4th.
You did, okay.
It was XPS 13.
That was the XPS. So I've named the Acer doesn't really count. Let's lump the Acer and the Asus in there, the ones that I really didn't dig so much. And I'm kind of out of actual laptops other than Macs at this point for review units.
I mean, it's worth mentioning.
You have probably another one that you want to mention, right? Like, I mean, number 5. What would you?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, should I mention him?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Go nuts. Is it your favorite?
The last one I had is the ThinkPad X1 Carbon, which was it's a good one. So the Lenovo's doing this Aura Edition thing.
Oh yeah,
which is kind of neat for certain things where you can do file sharing with iPhones, which is fun.
It's interesting they only have that on the Aura product. Like that should just be a software thing on all their products. Like
I've talked to them about this.
The materials, like I get the material and design part, but like software, really?
Okay, so I'm pretty sure that you can. I actually haven't tried it, but it's all working through Intel Unison software, which you can get on anything.
So this is Lunar Lake, right?
Yeah, it's Lunar Lake. Yeah, so their Aura Edition stuff is
amazing.
They told me it's not Lunar Lake specific. It's Intel specific. So
Okay.
it could come to some Arrow Lake products that I believe, I'm sure they have Arrow Lake products coming at CES.
I'm sure.
Intel's it's every year Intel pretty much does the same thing. They do gaming laptop chips and mainstream desktop chips. So it's Arrow Lake's time.
Right.
But yeah, and the X1 Carbon, I mean, they started doing this, I think, with the last generation where you can opt for a haptic touchpad instead of the mechanical touchpad with the two
a choice.
buttons.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, because obviously not everybody uses not everybody likes the track point with those physical buttons. So like now you can put a haptic touchpad there where the top of it can function as buttons or it can function as part of the touchpad.
Very cool.
And of course, it's a ThinkPad X1, so it's got a great keyboard. And
is that the one you posted when you posted the OnePlus gift on your timeline recently?
No, that was actually
a different. That's how I knew it was a Lenovo of some kind.
That's actually the Slim 7i Aura edition.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, which is fine. It's
Look
another
at you
one
and
of
all
those.
your Aura laptops.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for me, look, I don't have an M4 MacBook of any kind, but I have played briefly with the base MacBook Pro 14 M4, and I have to say, it's the first time where, I've always been a big advocate of nobody needs a Pro. Like, that's not true. But like, there are a lot of people out there, like my roommate here is a student in arts and not an illustrator and does not need any kind of horsepower on their laptop and has a 14-inch MacBook Pro. And I'm like, why did you not get, other than the 120 hertz, that I don't think they have any clue that's happening. Why did you not get a MacBook Air? And I'm a very big believer of that. For most people, these laptops with Snapdragon X Elite, X Plus even, these Lunar Lake laptops are all you need. And the M1, M2, M3 Air is all you need. M4 Air is coming. I'm sure it'll be great.
Oh, have they not done an M4 Air yet?
Not yet. It's coming. Right now, it's just the Pros. And that's the thing. The first time I've had a Pro,
we have to mention.
Wow, I think I might get that. The reason for that is because if I spec an M3 Air right now that all the Mac laptops have 16 gigs base, right? Finally, oh my God. Can we talk about how that hallelujah moment happened this year? It's the first time in 7 years that we've gotten more base RAM on a Mac. Steve Jobs finally shook in his grave and it happened. I don't know, something happened. But the point I'm making is that if you spec a MacBook Air 13 or 15 with roughly the same specs, you're $100, you're $100 away. And at that point, 120 hertz for a slightly thicker laptop with more ports, 100% I'll take that. That's the first time that it wasn't a big enough jump for me to go no, stay with the Air. So if you're looking at maybe getting a Mac right now and you're maybe waiting for the M4 Air, maybe look at the base, but don't go for anything but the base. 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage, base.
I think it's very important that we mention a product that is not mobile and not portable.
Please go ahead.
The Mac Mini.
I have one on order. I went through and bought one on Amazon for $4.99 during the sale. And it's by the time I got, my brain together to actually say, oh yeah, I really need that, it's not here yet. It said delivery between December 21st and January 11th. So I've got it coming to a locker, so it'll be easy. But you know what I bought to match it? Because, so right now, actually, can I just for a second? Please laugh at me. I bought an M3 21-inch iMac this summer.
Oh.
Totally got shafted because, I didn't buy the base. I needed more storage. I bought 512. And it's a business expense. So I'm like, whatever. I'm not getting it on sale. I need I was using a 27-inch iMac with a Core i5 that was so slow, even with 16 gigs of RAM and SSD and everything. It was just a dog. So I was like, okay, it's 5, 7, whatever years old. It's time to update. That's how often I update my Mac desktops or laptops sometimes, 5 to 7 years. So I was like, okay. And I was like, I could get a Mac Mini at the time, M2, whatever it was. And once I spec it right and I add a decent 27-inch monitor and I need a 5K because I don't want the scaling that happens when you don't have 5K on a Mac. And I was like, at that point, even if I don't buy a Mac monitor with Apple, which I never would, like, screw them, they're way too expensive. I was like, I'm looking at way more than an iMac. So maybe I can live with 21 inches. And I went and bought an M3 iMac with 512 gigs. So I've got 8 gigs of RAM, which on M is fine, but not great for AI. And then I've got 512 gigs. And that's what I'm using right now for this podcast. So those of you watching on Patreon, that's the camera quality using the ISP, which is actually doing portrait mode and doing portrait lighting for me right now. So if I look good, you can Apple 1080p camera. Anyway, great, fine. And then they come out with the M4 iMac, and base is 16 gigs. And USB-C on the peripherals. Hello. And I'm pissed. Because I talked to all the Mac and Apple experts, because I'm not really, I talked to Andrew and folks like that. Like last time, I'm like, should I wait? And they're like, no, it's only been a year since it got refreshed. It's going to be at least another year. You're good. Go ahead. And I'm not blaming them. It's my decision, right? Please don't get it wrong. But man, so here's the thing. I live in 2 places, and I'm using my laptop exclusively in Vancouver. Here I'm in San Francisco, but when I'm in Vancouver, I'm on my MacBook Air all the time, or on some PC laptop. And so I really need a desktop up there. It'd be nice to have a bit more real estate. So I'm actually going to take this 21-inch up to Canada, and I bought the Mac Mini M4 for the US. And
nice.
But I bought a 5K monitor. And again, Black Friday, $699 for the Samsung one.
Nice.
And, that incredibly great Samsung display with the matte finish and a built-in webcam that's magnetic. And apparently has a TV tuner, not a TV tuner, but like a smart TV mode with a remote. Like, great, I can watch Netflix without firing up my computer. Although my computer is always on anyway. But I'm so excited about the Mac Mini M4. I think it's so good. I agree we have to mention it.
It is. I didn't review it myself. We bought it for somebody. We bought it for Jad to review. And it's everything about it's incredible. And I had a friend who's a lawyer, and he asked me for a laptop recommendation. And
you're like, what are you doing? And he's like,
he's like, and yeah, like, you have no idea how many people buy laptops that they leave at a desk in an office.
Me in Vancouver, I'm using my Air, literally destroying my battery because I'm constantly charging, discharging, charging. Anyway, you know what I'm saying.
So the guy's like, yeah, I usually keep the lid shut, and I plug it into a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse. So I'm like, okay, here's what you need to do. And he bought this Mac Mini, and he just loves it. He's never used Mac OS in his life.
Wow.
It's just for $600.
Yeah, well, $499 during the holidays. And so you're going to say, I need 512 of storage minimum, and this is 256, right? So why did I buy a $499? Guess what I did? I bought the fastest Thunderbolt 4 enclosure for Mac from Otherworld Computing, right? It's it was on sale for $100, which is normally just for the enclosure, which is it's got the best chipset for Thunderbolt 4 external. And I bought a Western Digital, whatever, one of the recommended from many reviewers for that enclosure for Mac SSD at 1 terabyte for $100 as well on sale. So I went on a shopping spree on Black Friday, and I bought the Mac Mini base model $499. I bought the monitor, and I bought the enclosure and the SSD. And so I'm gonna boot off the SSD. I'm gonna completely ignore the 256 gigs. I'll create a partition to store some stuff on it. I've got so many external Thunderbolt SSDs anyway, but I wanted a high performance one for the boot drive, and so I finally have one because all my ones, I've got T5s and T7 Samsungs, and I've got a few external enclosures that are not the best chipset that are Thunderbolt 3. I've got a bunch of stuff this Mac that I have right now. This iMac has literally 4 drives attached to it. I've got a backup drive for my time machine. It's a spinny drive. I've got an SSD, a 4 terabyte SSD from Otherworld Computing that's 4 or 5 years old. It's a little slower. It's Thunderbolt 2, I think. Anyway, it's the life you live when you have So I'm perfectly fine with the Mac Mini. I'm used to having a million things hanging off. I had a Mac Mini before I had the 27-inch iMac, and I'm pointing behind me because it's on the floor back there. I need to sell that. Anyone who's listening to the podcast wants to buy really cheap a 27-inch iMac that's in perfect condition with an SSD and 16 gigs of RAM, let me know. I'll give you a good deal in San Francisco. I don't want to deliver it anywhere else. Good call. Anything else you have before we wrap up on the laptop stuff?
No, I don't think so.
Any gaming, anything that stands out there? I've always been a fan of the Zephyrus G series, like the 14, the 15, because they look like regular laptops.
Yeah, that was
but
a really nice
beasts.
Yeah, that was a really nice product. The Asus, but I mean, in general, like it's been a really cool year for Intel and Qualcomm. And a little bit of AMD. AMD's actually got the most CPU power right now in laptop chips. NVIDIA hasn't done a thing.
No, we're expecting them to, though, right?
Yeah, it should be. Should be at CES.
So speaking of CES and rumors, again, rumors. We have no idea for sure, but there are strong rumors that we're going to see that rollable laptop from Lenovo. But maybe not as just maybe beyond concept, which is crazy to me because if they do that, man. Wow. I love the Lenovo. I've got the Lenovo with the 2 displays, whatever the Yoga
book.
Whatever it is called. Oh, that thing. Yeah. I still use it. I have, Jeff, you're not getting it back until you get me a Snapdragon version of that, okay? Like, I'm telling you right now, I love that thing. 2 displays on the go. Perfect.
You know, Asus has come up a few times on this call, but on this podcast. They do a better job with the dual display thing. Because Lenovo still uses the glass as the touchpad. Right. If you have the keyboard on there, which means they're lighting up the bottom display, which means that apps get stuck down there sometimes.
Correct.
Asus solved that on theirs by just having the keyboard take up the whole thing, and so they can shut off that screen.
But it's a much bigger form factor. I like the light and thin, 13-inch form factor of the Lenovo better.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
I want them to improve that, the trackpad situation for sure. Although, I have to say, on a, like, in a moment of like not having the keyboard, I've literally typed on that glass keyboard and it hasn't been a horrible experience. So, it's like,
so this thing, so they do this really interesting thing with ThinkBook. It's called ThinkBook Plus, right? Yeah. They've done this. This will probably be, I think, the 5th gen.
Is it always like a weird special edition then? Is it actually retail? Weird. Do they sell the Plus ones?
They'll sell it and they will send out review units. And that is my favorite part about ThinkBook Plus. Like the last one was the hybrid, and that was a detachable.
I remember.
Where
Android tablet.
Android tablet that had a Qualcomm processor in the display, right? And an Intel processor in the base for running Windows.
Dude, Lenovo. Yep. I freaking love what Lenovo's doing.
Previous ThinkBook Plus had an e-ink display in the lid, which was really neat. Yeah. So they always do these kind of weird concepts, and then we'll get to review them later in the year. It's gonna be fun.
I feel like, honestly, this is if that's true, like if they can deliver on that, wow, because that's, we've seen a roll, like Lenovo is also Motorola, right? And we've seen the Moto, whatever, the phone that expanded, all that. So, like, I don't know. I think this would be amazing. This is an insane feat if they're actually make it a product. To be clear, though, while they will sell this, it will not be priced so that any sensible person should buy it. It'll be like that Android tablet Windows hybrid. It was like $3,000, $3,500 or something, where it makes way more sense to just buy a Windows laptop and an Android tablet if that's what you want. But Rich, we get review units. This is irrelevant to us. We want the toys. Totally. All we want is the toys. We're getting the toys. Yeah, we'll get the toys. That's the important thing. So let's hope it's true. I don't know. Now, let's go through some phone news real quick. Rapid fire through that. So you were with me on the crazy cruise with a lot of fun. OnePlus. Wasn't it crazy? So OnePlus 13R last week they announced that it was a real thing and that there was going to be a 6,000 milliamp hour battery in it. And that's great. That's all they give us, though. And they, of course, a photo, which if you go to last week's podcast, the web entry of it, you'll see a photo, a stock photo from OnePlus with the phone in it. Now we're hearing rumors or leaks that it's going to have an 8 Gen 3. So there you go. This is more of I'm keeping the audience up to date on what might be one of the most exciting phones of next year's in terms of bang for your buck, right?
Last year was Gen 2, right?
Yeah, it was Gen 2. So I think that would make sense if the flagship, we know that the 13 in China has an 8 Elite, and I expect the 13 to have an 8 Elite in the US when it comes out. So the 13R would, you step one notch down. That means the 8 Gen 3. It makes perfect sense. So, but let's see if that happens. And then related to that, I wanted to also mention that, every year people don't realize that you can kind of get a glimpse for what the R phone is going to be by looking at what China's doing again. But the thing is, people don't understand is that in China, they don't name the R series R. That's only for India and the West, and US, and North America. So the Ace number series is usually the R equivalent. And then there's an Ace Pro generally that's like slightly higher end, but not quite as high end as the flagship. And so that's what's happening. They finally launched them in China, the Ace 5. So there's no 4 last year because they don't do number 4. Last year was the 12R was the same as Ace 3. But what's interesting is the battery capacity is different on the Chinese Ace 5, which is the equivalent. And also, I'm not sure if the camera systems are the same. So it's like, I'm saying take it for a grain of salt this year, because I'm sure that I feel like there's going to be differences because they're trying to meet price points in different markets. Whereas in the past, it was identical. So I think you can take an inspiration by looking at the specs of the Ace 5, which are public now, to kind of extrapolate what the 13R is going to be. But I would say wait till the announcement, which is January 7th. They told us so, to find out for sure. But if you're looking for something to replace like an older, like OnePlus 10T, or even if you had like a 7T, like that was a great phone. It's getting a bit old now. But if you had a 7T or 10T, or maybe like even an 11, they never did the 11. But if you're in Asia and you got the 11R, maybe the 13R, and you're looking for that, check January 7th when we're in the middle of CES. There'll be some news. But yeah, I'm excited about what I'm seeing here. What about you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, I'm excited that they're launching at CES. No one does phone announcements at CES anymore. or MWC for that.
I'm not sure it's such a good idea considering how they're going to get buried in the noise, but
that's fine.
Because they're not actually having an event at CES.
Are they not doing a keynote or anything?
As far as I know, they're not doing anything at CES. They're just launching the phones, and then I will find out when they go on sale. They're going to announce them for the West. But that's it.
In general, I think that OnePlus has been making very good products, better than they have in years. This has
been an amazing year and a half since the Open. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the OnePlus 12 is great, and excited to see.
I'm super excited to see what happen with this. All right. So then, related to that, I don't know if you're familiar with this, Rich, but you should keep an eye on this. I know you're not a phone guy per se, but I know you have phone love in your blood.
Yeah.
There is always every year a Realme phone that is a really affordable camera phone. Like imagine, like the camera phones we get from BBK groups that are like $1,000, like the Ultras and the Pros. And imagine now you bring that down to the $350 price point without compromise. That's what the Realme numbered Pro Plus series does. It's always the Pro Plus. The Pro is not that great. The regular is not interesting. But I mean, they're good in their respective markets. They fill a need. It's just that I'm always looking at the Pro Plus on the numbered series because they deliver like the same camera system that probably we're going to see on a OnePlus 13 or the flagship from Realme, the GT7 Pro, or even a Find X8 non-Pro. They deliver that level of imaging on like something with a Dimensity 7300 or like, and at a price that is it's not a US product, but at a price that is not just China, it's like India and the rest of the world. So I'm always excited to see what's happening. And I actually just talked to the Realme PR folks and they're sending me one. So folks, stay tuned because I'm going to take that. Every year I take it for a drive because I'm like, what is it delivering? Now, we don't know the full specs yet. I'm going to link to a story of GSM Arena. They took photos with the phone, and so you can see the quality. And
the specs not public?
The specs are not public yet, not for the Pro Plus, at least not the camera specs. But here's, looking at the lenses, here's what I'm thinking. That 3x telephoto prismatic thing that we've seen on the Realme GT7 and we've seen on the GT7 Pro and on the two Find X's, the Find X8 and 8 Pro is going to be on there. So we're going to get a 3x telephoto, 50 megapixel with that crazy periscope folded 3-time prismatic thing. And of course, it can only get better from the 13 last year. I have the 13 Pro Plus, and that has 50-50 and 8 for the ultra wide. So I expect, and it has a 3x telephoto periscope. So I expect it's going to be 50-50 with the new periscope, and then 8, and then who knows for the processor. And it looks like it has the same display also as the flagship, which is, I believe, the same display as the OnePlus. Well, the Ace 5, actually. So there you go. Pretty good for a $350 phone.
Yeah.
Yep. So Stay tuned for that, folks. Also, rumors of the Nothing Phone 3A coming out as 2 versions like last year, where there was a 2A and then a 2A Plus. But the 2A Plus did not bring much to the table other than an updated processor. This is supposed to have a periscope telephoto on the Plus. So again, this might be the first Nothing phone with a periscope telephoto. And notice what's interesting is we haven't heard much about a Nothing Phone 3, but we're hearing a lot of rumors about 3A. I think the 2A was such a success for Nothing last year that they are probably focusing on that more than a flagship 3. You've used them, these phones at all?
I've not used any Nothing phones.
You ought yourself.
I've read a lot about them.
You ought yourself to borrow one because the OS on that is one of the nicest version of Android you can use. Like I would say it's better than Pixel. It's like the purest, but still not completely stock because it's like you get lots of features. Like it's like Moto. You know how Moto is a pure Android plus, and like I think Pixel has deviated a little too far from pure Android. It's like it's very nice, but it's a little too much now. It's a little too much Google at times. And this is coming from me, who's a Pixel purist. But I'm just saying that if you want a fantastic Android experience, OS 3 that just came out on the Nothing phones. Oh man, just get a 2A sent to you. Just try it out for a few days. So good. All right. So good. Yeah. I mean, it's not just the hardware that's exquisite because of the design. It's like the software is really something special. So I'm really excited to see that they're going to do periscope telephoto on a mid-range phone, budget-ish mid-range. Yeah.
Telephoto's good.
Telephoto's good. I agree. And it's nice to see that unlike Apple, who's rumored to come out with an iPhone SE this year, that's going to be a single lens again. Like, come on. Ah, so frustrating.
I do appreciate that they don't do sticker cameras, as
I agree. Oh yeah,
we often call them these days.
Yeah, well, that's what I've been calling them. But that's still happening. But it's less and less in Android land. It's actually interesting that I think they're understanding, and also the price point has gotten to the point where they can actually afford to put like a 2x telephoto instead, which makes way more sense. At least give it autofocus, so you can use it for something. Portraits especially. I don't know. I think it's changing, but Nothing has been good about that. They've never put a sticker cam on their phones.
Yeah.
Even the base CMF phone, which by the way is one of my top 5s of last year, $200 phone that kicks serious butt, does not have a fake camera. It has an 8 megapixel ultra wide along with a 50 megapixel. Yep. So there you go. Nothing Phone 3. Oh, speaking of thin phones and Apple making an SE, I don't know if you follow the rumors on that, but the rumors now are that the iPhone 17 Air is going to have mid-range price point. It's going to be priced between the Pros and the regular.
Oh, is it?
Well, that's what came out 2 weeks ago. And I'm not sure if that's true. I feel like that's hard to believe. But if it's named Air, that makes sense, right? Because Air is lower than Pro. So
true.
So we're going to have the SE come out. Then we're going to have, I believe, the Air and the 17 Pro come out at the same time. And then the Air is supposed to be really thin and have a single rear camera that apparently has the ability to do all 3 lenses. So I'm expecting, this is my theory, 200 megapixel main sensor, but it's actually an ultra wide. So it starts at 0.5, at 200 megapixel, and then because of really good optics and OIS and all that good stuff, they can zoom in to say about 5x without losing. So you get on the same lens, 0.5, 1, 2, 5. And then beyond that, it degrades. But I think that's what we're going to see. And of course, Apple is going to reinvent the wheel by telling us all about how, they're being, what is it, brave? No. What is it?
Courage?
Courage. They're going to use the word courage. I feel like Phil Schiller is going to come out of retirement, poke his head on stage, and piss everyone off again. I don't know.
I will say, though, as far as these rumors of really thin phones go, though, I'm here for it.
I'm here for it, too. Remember the Moto Z, 5mm thick, the one for the mods, the original one? Yeah.
Listen, the iPhone 6 was 127 grams. And I remember this because it was so just delightful to carry. And
Theo
my
has not upgraded from an SE. They've gone through every SE phone because they want the form factor of basically the original iPhone 6.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you get a 15 Pro Max or 16 Pro Max. This is the first year I actually didn't buy one. But it's about a half a pound.
It's ridiculous.
You're carrying a half a pound in your pocket.
You know what? I downgraded from a 15 Pro Max to a 16 Pro because now that the cameras are the same, I'm like, I don't need. It's not my main phone. It's in my bag to do video. It just makes up weight in my bag. I don't need it, so I went 16 Pro.
I've done that in the past, but now I'm kind of addicted to big phones.
If it's your main phone, as much as I love the Pixel 9 Pro as that's the one I would recommend to people. For me, I need the XL. Actually,
but the XL is the one you said.
I'm on the
same.
Fold. I'm on the Fold right now. So by the way, as an aside, audience, my Pixel 9 Pro Fold review is up on Hot Hardware. Yes, I am 3 months late, but I didn't get the review unit. Here's my phone. For those of you in a nice green case, it's the Obsidian one. For those of you who are wondering, yes, I got it really late as a review unit from Google, and then I really, really put it through its paces. And so reviews up, check it out. It's an editor's choice. I think it's a phenomenal phone, and I'm really excited that all of the Pixels are phenomenal this year. But all this preface of the Air, and we got there through the iPhone SE, but Samsung's making a slim phone supposedly, and we might see it soon.
Let's make this a trend. Thin phones, lighter phones.
I'm totally on board. But I think it's going to be big. That's the problem. I think that all of these thin phones are going to be larger, but thinner and lighter. So there's rumors that it's actually not that thin. That's the problem. So the rumors right now are that if you look at this, I'm like, yeah, less than 6mm. That's not bad, granted. But no, actually, it says 6 point something. So 6 point something
under 7 is it's thin. I mean, what's an S24?
Oh, it's 9 at least. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it is
thin, but I was hoping for really thin, folding phone unfolded thin.
Okay, like Surface Duo thin.
Yeah, 5 point something. Like Moto shown us on this. They did it already. Come on, that was almost a decade ago. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. But these are the latest rumors from Samsung. And then no rumors here, but Dimensity chip from MediaTek, a new one, 8400. They always come out with a slightly detuned flagship. So this is an all big core design again. Are you excited about this? Is this cool?
It is cool.
I think it's cool.
It is cool. A lot of the stuff that MediaTek is doing is cool. I wish I heard from them more in the United States.
Yeah. Well, they did that Samsung tablet this year. That's a big win. That's a
huge win.
Right?
Huge win.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty. That was pretty exciting. I love chip competition always.
Me too. So this competes with the Snapdragon 7 Plus Gen 3, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it should. Right. I don't know the specs on the 7 Plus Gen 3, but it's not.
It's not all big.
It's not
core.
this.
No, it's definitely, and it's not using the Orion cores either. So I'm actually expecting Qualcomm to drop a 7X series, 7 Elite series, or 7 Plus, maybe an 8 Plus. Maybe instead of 8 Elite, we're gonna get an 8 Plus, or maybe a 7 Elite. I don't know, something like that.
Their branding is so weird. Because they're reserving these special brands for Orion, but eventually Orion starts to scale down. So I don't know what they're gonna, but at some point they're gonna have a lower tier chip. Yeah, it only makes sense.
No, it makes sense. All right, so Dimensity 8400. the big exciting news is there is a phone coming out with it right away, and that's the Poco X7 Pro, which I have a review unit incoming. So I actually have the X7 already, and the X7 is 7300, and I have the X7 Pro with the 8400 coming. So stay tuned for that, folks. I don't have any specs. I think it's still under embargo. I can't tell you anything other than I have it coming. But it's very clear that it's 8400 because I believe they came out and said it. So there you go. Not surprising because, Xiaomi is always one of the first to come out with a new chip. So yeah, yep. I mean, look, none of this will matter. If you're playing games, I honestly think that any Snapdragon 7 series, any Dimensity 8000 series playing games, you won't notice much of a difference. There's the flagship chips, unless you're like playing at the highest settings and you're playing for 5 hours in a row, and you just go buy a Red Magic, okay, or an Asus ROG phone, right? But most of you won't care because most of you are perfectly happy with the Dimensity 7300 anyway. Basically, yeah, is my theory.
It's true, and when you look at things like the OnePlus 13R, the Ace 5, or whatever we were talking about, a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which is fine for like a solid 99% of people.
100%. Yeah. I think, I appreciate my audience wanting to get the 13R because if it has an 8 Gen 3, as we, the rumors are, you're getting last year's chip. That's a pretty freaking solid chip for gaming. Like there's a big difference between that and a 7300. So I get it, but I'm just saying that for the average person that just buys a phone, anything that's modern today, 7300 and up, 7 Plus or 7 Gen 3 and up, whatever it might be from Qualcomm, you're going to be 100% happy. Even if you fire up the occasional, even intensive-ish game, you'll be fine. So that's the thing to keep in mind. If you are in a market where there's more variety than in the US and you can't get the subsidies from the carriers and you want to save money, you don't need the flagship chipsets. That's my thought. So yeah.
No, totally. Yep.
Well, there we go. It's been a good show. We've covered all the goodness. I mean, those laptops this year, I cannot get over how good of a compute year it's been. Just that in the Mac Mini, too. We had to throw that in there. It's so portable. You can throw that in your knapsack, plug it into a TV in a hotel room, grab wireless keyboard and mouse, and you're good to go. Like, holy crap. That's
Let me tell you, next year is going to be exciting, too.
I know.
CES is, about a week and a half away or something?
Exactly.
Actually, I leave next Saturday.
So. I leave on, whatever, the 4th, whenever that is.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I have some exciting news, actually. We have Rivian as our official transportation sponsor for the podcast. They're lending us an SUV to take to Vegas and then beyond, because we always go to Palm Springs afterwards. And we've got all the camping gear, so we're going to go camping in Joshua Tree with it. And expect a story. I'm hoping to get a story on Tech Radar. As you know, I write about cars over there. So it's going to be fun. And also, I have another sponsor for lodging, so stay tuned for that. It's pretty exciting this year. I got all the connections. Ooh, I worked hard to make it happen, is really what it is. I'll see you there, right?
Yes.
Maybe, like in passing, because it's impossible to spend time together at CES.
Listen, anytime I make plans with people, like, we'll catch up at CES, and then it never happens. But the one time that I do catch up with people is like PepCom and Showstoppers.
Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah.
That's the
That's
one time
always the good ones for sure. People. Cool. Well, listen, Rich, do you want to tell folks where they can find you, what your social media handles are these days, and of course, tell them about XDA.
Yes, you can find me at XDA. I am at the Rich Woods on, let's say, Blue Sky. I'm available on other platforms, but I don't like to use them. But yeah, XDA. I'm there. I'm the editor in chief, and we're doing lots of fun things. We're going to start doing gaming stuff in February, and I'm pretty excited about where we're headed with that. So
Wow.
so stay tuned if you're interested in gaming.
That's awesome. So, folks, go read
I
XDA.
think I just made an announcement, actually. I don't think anybody knows that.
All right. Well, folks, follow Rich on social. Blue Sky apparently is his main place, so I'll put the link to his profile. And check out XDA. XDA is my go-to source for compute. If I have literally direct message Rich saying, I cannot figure out how to do this Windows thing. And he's helped me out because he's so freaking awesome. So you want to know the things for your laptops and PCs and Macs, go to XDA. It's the way to go. And you know where to find me, folks. I'm at Tankgirl on social, TNKGRL. I'm on all the platforms as that handle. I'm primarily on Threads and Blue Sky and Instagram, but still on the crazy Twitter thing. Mostly because I have an audience there, but I try to avoid it, frankly. So if you want to join me on Blue Sky and maybe on Threads, that'd be great. And then, of course, the podcast itself lives at mobiletechpodcast.com. That's the main site. But, if you go there, you can subscribe, or if you go to your app, you can subscribe to the podcast on anything. We're on Spotify. We're on, Google and Apple's podcasting platform. So just subscribe. That'd be great. Tell your friends as well. If your app lets you rate or review the show, please consider doing that too. Any help would be great. And then there's a YouTube channel at youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. There's some videos there. And, if you want free video content, that's the place to go. So check that out. You know how YouTube works. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, comment about the podcast. I'll be there. Also, Patreon. If you want to really help, I can use your support because, it takes time and energy and sponsors and stuff. And this is my main gig. So patreon.com/TNKGRL. And you can get a video version of the podcast. You can see us. You can see us brandish devices sometimes as outtakes, sometimes as extra content. And it comes out a day in advance for $5 a month every show. So every week you get a video. You can watch us there in advance. Consider helping me out, patreon.com/tankgirl. And if you don't like Patreon, you can do a one-time donation through PayPal. There's a link in the show notes for that. Consider helping me out. And I also want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. I review a lot of phones, so I'm constantly juggling multiple devices. While that's fun, it also means I'm spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. Thankfully, there's Mint Mobile, and that's who I'm teaming up with for today's podcast. If you want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. You've probably seen the Mint Mobile ads featuring Ryan Reynolds, but let me quickly tell you how fantastic their service is, especially for tech-savvy early adopters like us. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current devices and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM card free of charge. The whole process only takes 15 minutes, and if you get stuck, Mint has a great customer service team to get you through it. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning-fast 5G and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link, mintmobile.com/mobiletech, to get premium wireless starting at $15 a month. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And Rich, thanks for taking time in the holidays to join me on All Things Laptop. You're the expert. I appreciate you being here. Thanks.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun.
All right. We'll have you on again sometime in the future. And folks, we'll have another show next week where we're going to predict CES. So stay tuned for that. I know. All right. Until next week. Cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.